Hi, I'm Jenny Fish from One Big Happy Yarn Company. We want to be your yarn shop no matter where you live. Welcome to our Etta Tee Knit Along. Etta is a top-down sweater designed by Allison Green, and we're knitting it with Barocco Summer Sesame yarn. We have everything you need to knit with us at onebighappy.com. In this video, we'll talk about supplies, choosing a size, reading a pattern, and the basics of making a gauge swatch. Let's get started. Today we're going to be knitting the Etta sweater, and it is a top-down knit in the round. We start with the collar, and then we do some lace work where we build in our increases. We go on to some short rows in the back. We'll show you how to hold the stitches for the sleeves, cast on some new stitches. There's a little bit of waist shaping in the sides here in the body. It's just an increase and a decrease. It comes along very smooth and easy. And then a lot of this sweater is done in stockinette. You keep going straight down. That's knitting every stitch round and round and round. As we get to the end, we go into garter stitch. When you're doing garter stitch in the round, there's a little trick that you have to do. And then you bind off. And I'll show you each of these step by step, and we're gonna make it as simple as possible for you. In today's sweater, we will be using the Barocco Summer Sesame. This is a cotton, acrylic, and nylon blend. The acrylic and the nylon add structure to the cotton, so you still are able to wash this and lie flat to dry, so that's always a good thing. This is the color that I chose for our project today, and it's called Coral, but we have a wide variety of colors. All of them are self-striping. This is a textured yarn with little nubs on it. If you're not used to working with textured yarn, this is a good one to start out with because it's not too finicky. Because this yarn is a little textured, I like using a smoother needle, and for this project, I used the Chow. Both the interchangeable and the fixed worked well with this project. The bonus to getting the interchangeables is this sweater calls for 2 different needle sizes. We cast on with a smaller size to get our collar. Once we're done with the collar portion of our sweater, then we switch to a larger size. And by using what's called interchangeables, it's just the tips, and then you have your cord that's in your work, and you can just switch them out without having to pull out another set of needles. I found this worked better for me, but use what you have, or get what you're familiar with or what you're comfortable with. If you have any questions about needle sizes, styles, how they connect together, feel free to leave a comment below and we'll get back to you with our opinions and suggestions. What we will also be using for this project are stitch markers. This will help when we get to the lace portion of it. Use what stitch markers you have best. I use the clovers. I like the roundness of them and the 2 different colors so I can mark between each repeat in my lace pattern. I just find that using several stitch markers when I'm doing lace makes it well worth it. We also have our little clicky row counter that I love the sound of so much. This little guy here, and of course you're going to need some scissors and a tapestry needle at the end when we go in and weave in our ends. What you will get when you purchase the kit, and the kits are available at onebighappy.com, but you will pick the color of yarn that you want, and then you get a pattern booklet. And in this pattern booklet, you'll find that it has a few more sweaters and shawl patterns in it. We're going to be using the Etta one. Because there is a lace chart in this pattern, we also recommend using some kind of pattern keeper, and I liked this one. It is magnetic, so you can put your chart in here. Then you just lay this in here and you can follow your chart this way, and I'll show you more when we get to that. But I really loved this pattern keeper. It kept everything together for me, and I was able to keep my spot and move through the lace pattern very easily. We want to talk about how to select the size that is what you need for the sweater that you're making. And this pattern asks you to allow for 2 to 4 inches of positive ease. Positive ease is extra fabric in the sweater so that it's not clinging to your body. This sweater has a little bit of a drape, so we want about 2 to 4 inches added to the size that we're gonna measure on our body to fit the sweater that we want. So it's a little confusing, but that's okay. I'm gonna show you how to do it. My handy dandy little friend here, this is who I made the sweater for. We are going to measure, and you measure at the largest area of your bust. So we're gonna come around here, great big hug. We're gonna bring this around, and she is just slightly over 42. So 42 and a half. What I'm gonna do is look at the sizes that I have on the chart, and if I give 2 inches of positive ease, I'm at a 44 and a half. So that is the size that I use to make this sample here. And once you look at your pattern, you're gonna see all these numbers. Match up where your size is located in that string of numbers and circle it, and then go through the pattern, and when it says cast on this many stitches, find where your size corresponds in that string of numbers and circle it or highlight it, and then do that throughout your entire pattern. And that way, when you actually are in the thick of it, when you're knitting it, you don't have to second guess, oh, which number am I looking at here? You've already circled it or you've highlighted it. Sometimes, especially with this pattern, because there are so many different numbers, I go ahead and cross out all the other ones that don't apply to me. I just want to focus on the numbers for the sweater that I'm making. So I hope that helps you understand how to measure your bust, find the size that you're making, and follow it in your pattern. Okay, so we've gone over and talked about how to pick the right size, talked about measuring. Now we need to figure out exactly what needle size we want to use. The pattern calls for starting out on a size 4 and then moving up to a size 6. It suggests that you do your gauge swatch with a size 6. Because this sweater is knit in the round, we need to make our gauge swatch mimic knitting in the round. And to do this, I use a floating technique. Here's my swatch. And you'll see all these little fringes on the side. I want to show you how I made this swatch without knitting in the round. So for this swatch, I cast on about 45 stitches, and I am going to knit flat and mimic knitting in the round. When I get done knitting here, I pull my knitting needle through. I'm going to float this last piece and knit my first stitch. Your first stitch is always going to be a little loose and wobbly because there's no foundation behind it. But once you get in, and that's why I did use about 45 stitches to give me that extra length to get a good gauge sample. After you're done with your swatch, wash it. How you're going to wash your finished sweater and block it. After you wash it, before you block it, go ahead and cut those strings. These little floats back here, go ahead and cut those, lie it flat to dry, and that will help you get the gauge that you're going to have when you're finished. So gauge, what is that? It is the number of stitches per inch that the designer knitted when making the sweater. The gauge swatch is for a size 6, and it's 21 stitches per inch and 28 rounds per 4 inches. So we've got a pretty big swatch here. You want to get kind of a little bit further away from the center, further away from the edge, and in the center of your fabric because we have these looser stitches on the end. So right here's a really good spot for me to go ahead and measure to see how many stitches per inch that I have. So what I'm going to do is line up on the same line here, and this is self-striping yarn, so it makes it a little easier to follow my line. And we are going to count to see how many stitches we have in 4 inches. Because of the nubs in this yarn, we want to go ahead and count all 4 inches to get a good, accurate reading. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, right there on the floor. So I have 21 stitches in 4 inches. This piece measures to the gauge of the pattern. This is what I'll be using. Now remember, if you have too few stitches, then you need to go down a needle size, and that will give you more stitches per inch. And if you have too many stitches, then you need to go up a needle size, and that will give you fewer stitches per inch. Go ahead and knit your swatch, measure it, and swatch again if you need to. Remember, you can get a kit with the yarn and the pattern booklet at onebighappy.com. Join me next time as I show you how to cast on, work basic lace stitches, read lace charts, and avoid some of the common trouble spots in lace knitting. Be sure to hit the subscribe button below and click the bell to be notified every time we have a new video. Happy knitting!